Hello, and welcome to our Quickstart guide for setting up an in-app message with OneSignal. In this tutorial, we're going to set up our first in-app message, in this case, a push permission prompt. Over the course of the video, you should learn all you need to know to set up a variety of different in-app messages, so don't worry if you're not specifically interested in setting up a push prompt for yourself. The first thing you'll need to do in order to send your users in-app messages is to set up the OneSignal mobile SDK on your app. We have a complete guide to this in our documentation, which you can find under our mobile setup section, or you can scan the QR code that's on the screen now. For this video, I've already set up a basic Android app with the OneSignal SDK installed and some basic functionality for installing OneSignal in-app messages, which I'll show you later. To send your first in-app message, go to Messages, then In-app. Here you'll see some template messages to help get you started. Today, I will use our push permission prompt template to create an in-app that prompts users to sign up to push notifications. I want to make sure I have a copy of the template to return to if needed, so I'll begin by duplicating the message. In the following screen, we can edit the look and feel of the in-app as well as defining who will see it. Remember, in-app messages can only be seen by users who are using your mobile app, and it's also important to remember that any app user can receive an in-app message. They do not need to subscribe to push notifications in order to see them. To choose who is eligible to see your in-app messages, under the Audience section, select either Show to all users or Show to a particular segment. If you select the latter, you'll be prompted to choose which segments you want to include in the message and which segments, if any, you want to exclude. As this is a push permission prompt, I want any user accessing the app to be able to see the message. Next, we can alter the look and feel of our message and add functionality to it. You can see that the push permission prompt already has all the functionality you'll need to prompt your users built in. Note that when the push permission prompt action is included, it will force the message to only show to users that are not opted in to push already. However, I think we should try personalizing this a bit. I'm going to make this a full screen message so that I can add in a third option for my users to choose so that they don't have to be prompted again. So I'll click Add Block, choose a button block, and it appears in the message. I'm going to change the formatting of this button. I'm going to change the font color, the font size, and make the background a different color, all to make the button stand out slightly less. As this is an option, I prefer the users didn't choose as much as possible. You can see also there are some advanced options here for adding drop shadow and changing the border color of your buttons. Next, I'd like to change the text that's at the top of the screen here, so I'm going to change the title and the subtitle here just to make the text a little bit more interesting. I'm also going to change the color and the font size of these just to make them stand out slightly and increase readability. Finally, I forgot to add a click action to the new button earlier, so I'll do that now. I'm going to have it set a data tag for the user which I can use to determine whether to show this in-app. Now, to ensure that the users that have clicked this button don't see the prompt again, I'll just go and change the audience for this message to include all users, but exclude users with this tag. To do that, I'll create a new segment that filters on that tag. Now that I have the message looking and operating as I want it to, I can move on to deciding when to show this to users. There are two ways to trigger a message to be shown to your users, either as soon as the app opens or when certain conditions are met. If you choose to add conditions, you'll need to specify at least one trigger. I'd like my in-app to display every time the user logs in, so I'll set this trigger up now. You can then set a time limit for how long the message will be displayed for on screen until it's automatically dismissed. I'm going to leave mine to show until it's dismissed by the user. Now we need to set the schedule for the message. We can either set it live immediately or schedule it to go live at a certain point in the future. And we can also decide whether we want it to show forever or just until a specific time. I'm going to leave this as sending immediately and forever, but if this were a promotional message, I may have wanted to set up a fixed start and end date to coincide with the dates of an offer or event. Finally, we need to decide how often to show the message. I want to keep prompting the user for push notifications until they either accept or flatly refuse, so I'll select every time trigger conditions are satisfied. What's left to do now is either save the draft or set the message live. If there were no trigger conditions to be met, we'd be done now and the message would be available to all users the next time they open the app. However, I wanted to trigger the notifications only when the user logs into the app. So to do this, I need to use the addTrigger SDK method. You can see here in my code that I've already set this up, calling the trigger every time the login button is clicked. We also need to remove the line of code that prompts users using the standard message to ensure they're not prompted twice. I'll just comment this out for now. All that's left for me to do now is to open my app and see if it works. As per our settings, when the app loads up, we don't see the message immediately. However, as soon as we click on the login button, the message appears. Clicking our allow button automatically brings up the native prompt and allows users to subscribe to notifications. And that's it. You now know how to quickly set up in-app messages and how to use them to create your own custom push prompt. Before we end the video, here are some useful hints and tips. When editing an in-app, before setting it live, you can send it as a test to one of your users. Please note that if the user does not currently have the app open, this will send them a push notification that they will then have to click in order to see the message. Remember that this is not the case when setting your in-app live, and users will not receive push notifications about in-app messages. Please also note that any tag substitutions you may have included in your in-app message will not work in a test message. It's also important to know that in-app messages are not instantly shown to users once they are set live. Once an in-app message has been set live, the user must reopen the app after it has been in the background for at least 30 seconds for the in-app to display. The user must also meet the correct segment criteria and must satisfy all of the triggering conditions before the message will display. If the user is not in the correct segment, they'll need to have reopened the app after it has been in the background for at least 30 seconds after they have entered the segment in order for the in-app to be displayed. Updating a user's segment mid-session will not display the message. You can create a carousel in-app message by adding additional cards to your in-app message. Simply click the Create Carousel button, and then you can add up to 10 cards by clicking the Add Card button. You can then customize each card to your liking. Please note that carousel in-apps are only compatible with full screen messages and require a paid plan. You can add event listeners to your in-app message using our Add Click Listener SDK method. This allows you to not just track the clicks of the in-app, but also add functionality within your app to respond to the user's clicks. For more details on how to use this method, please see our in-app message SDK methods guide or scan the QR code on screen now. Finally, you can track the clicks and impressions of an in-app message once it's live by going to the in-app messages page and selecting it from the list of messages. From here, you can see the impressions not just for the in-app as a whole, but also the impressions for each card of your in-app and the clicks for each element of the in-app.